All right, this is where we left off last week. You should have everything that's up there on the screen. Okay? And again, if it's not, I put these lectures on Canvas, so you can always scroll to anything you missed and get caught up on what you missed. Do remember this word up here, secular. We talked about this last week. Secular is one of your vocabulary words you got to know for your test coming up on the 17th, I believe it is. Uh, that word secular means like the world that we are experiencing right now, that we can see, hear, taste, smell, okay, etc. Okay. Now, when it says China was the most secular, make sure you understand that doesn't mean that they didn't believe in the gods or the spirits or the afterlife. They did, but they're saying that they're actually kind of like more like us today, okay, in the West. That they were much more like if you look at the 24-hour day, the Chinese, like us, or most of us anyway, spent their day thinking about like, okay, what do I have to do next? What does my wife want me to do? What does my husband want me to do? What do I have to do for the kids? Okay, the dog got out. I got to go take care of the dog. Think practical things. Okay, things that we deal with every single day. They weren't as focused on religion as say India was. India was more focused on religion, but the Chinese absolutely believe. There was Taoism there. There was Buddhism. They had absolutely had ancestor worship too. So I don't want you to think that they didn't believe in an afterlife or anything like that. Okay, so let's talk about what they did focus on. Okay, in China, Confucianism. Okay, Confucius, okay, was a philosopher, a scholar, and he was born near the end of the Zhao dynasty. Remember the Zhao dynasty? They're the ones who created the mandate of heaven or invented it. But this was, if you kind of follow the Mandate of Heaven's pattern, this is when the Zhao dynasty had lost the Mandate of Heaven, and there was a lot of fighting going on between this Chinese warlord and that Chinese warlord and that Chinese warlord. What do you think the warlords are fighting over? Yeah, but they're also fighting over something else. No, not religion. The Zhao dynasty is collapsing. The emperor has lost the Mandate of Heaven. These other warlords are fighting to see what? What did you say? That's exactly it. Who's going to be the new emperor? Who's going to create the next new dynasty of China? Now, hey, is when you're growing up in that kind of environment, okay, do you feel safe when there's fighting everywhere, when there's killing everywhere? Do you feel safe? Okay, no, I don't think so. It's probably like why you guys probably stay away from bad neighborhoods, for example. Okay, at night. Okay, you don't feel safe. Confucius, he was living in a very unsafe neighborhood, in a very unsafe world at that time. And he was inspired by the chaos and the killing all around him to create a philosophy that would lead to the opposite of that. Okay? So instead of chaos, he came up with a philosophy that would lead to order and good government because the Zhao dynasty was not good government. It was bad government at that point in time. Okay. And so had he been brought up during a time of peace and prosperity, he probably never would have come up with his philosophy like he did. Okay. Now, his philosophy is a secular tradition, meaning it's not a religion. Okay? It's about how we should behave towards each other while we're alive in the here and the now. How we should behave in a way that leads to order, stability, peace. Now, here's the ironic thing about Confucius. He died thinking that he was a failure. His goal while he was alive was to try to find a Chinese prince who would adopt his philosophy and then serve as a role model so others could see, oh, this is the way, and then they would follow him, and that's how his ideology or philosophy would spread. But while he was alive, no Chinese prince actually adopted his philosophy. So he died thinking he was a failure. He never, ever, sadly, knew that his philosophy would become so important to China's history, even to this day, right now. Okay. Now, it was the Han Dynasty, however, many, many years after he's dead, who adopted his philosophy, and they actually created this test, the civil service exam. Okay. which if you wanted to work in the government as a bureaucrat, a civil servant, you had to pass this test. So you had to know everything Confucius ever said to pass the test, which meant that every single person in the Chinese government was a Confucianist. In other words, every single person in the Chinese government was doing things the way Confucius said they should be done. Everybody was on the same page. There was really not, there was no fighting about how to do things because they all believed, yep, the way Confucius said to do it, that's the way to do it. Now, Confucius himself, he never wrote anything down, kind of like Socrates or Jesus or Muhammad. Okay, they didn't write; their followers wrote things down for them. Okay, their students, disciples, whatever you want to call them, and his students compiled all of his teachings in a book referred to as the Analects. We're not going to get in; we don't have time to get into everything he ever taught. But here are the major beliefs. Okay, number one, every person has a role to play. And you should stick to that role and don't try to do things outside your role. So if you're a peasant, then you be the best farmer you can be and you don't question the emperor because the emperor's job is not to farm. The emperor's job is to make decisions for us all, to run the country. You don't question what he says. You just be a farmer. Now, he used the family as a model for society, for how a good society should be run. Are y'all familiar with like the Iron Man movies or the Avengers movies when Tony Stark he's like looking at a scheme like a plan, maybe it's on paper, and then he does this, he goes, and he throws it up around the room. It's all 3D and everything. Okay, he Confucius takes the family, okay, and he goes okay, for the entire society. Okay, so think about the family, the mom, dad, the kids. Okay, in China, who ran the family? The dad, exactly. So if you go zoom, okay, then who is the dad of the country? The emperor. Good. Okay. All right. And then you got the children, the family. Okay. What? Tell me, inside the family, what should the children do for the father? What's their duty? What's the obligation of a child to the father? To what? Yeah, to obey. You got it. Yeah, you got the right idea. To respect and to obey. You got it. Okay. Tell me this: if you go zoop and you expand into family to society, okay, we already know that the emperor is like dad, but the children, who are the children for the entire country? The people, everyone, not just the peasants, but all the people, okay, all the people. What should the people do towards the emperor? Respect and obey. That's exactly right. However, though, does a father have any obligations to his children, his family? She's shaking her head no. Oh goodness, that's scary. What in today's world, what should a father do for the children? Take care of them, provide, be a good role model, be a teacher, okay? All right, show them how to do things, protect them, okay? The emperor is dad, okay? So in other words, the emperor, he has obligations too. He should protect the people, be a good role model for the people, okay? Provide for them. Okay, remember the mandate of heaven too. Okay, all right. Okay, now this is a term you don't know, but you need to learn. Put a star by it. Okay, the term is filial. I know it's a strength. Take a look at it. Filial piety. Filial piety. When you see that term, 98% of the time you're going to be in China. The other 2%, you might be in Vietnam, Korea, or Japan, one of China's satellites. Okay, one of the countries right around China. Okay, but filial piety is a Confucian concept that means respect for your parents and your elders, grandparents, great grandparents, including your ancestors who have passed away. They absolutely believed that their ancestors were still there with them. Okay, and you owe them respect. All right. The five basic relationships. We're not going to get into all five of them. It's not that big of a deal. But in every one of these relationships, except for one, there's a superior and an inferior. The superior, like father, is a role model. Okay. The inferior always respects or obeys. The only relationship that was close to being equal or was equal was friend to friend, and that was only if they were the same age and the same gender. And that's not that important. I'm not going to test you on that, so don't worry about that. Yes, sir. As a model, yeah. Okay, so this is a patriarchal society. Okay, so inside the family, okay, what does the wife do for the husband? And obey. Ladies, don't get mad at me. Okay, all right. Okay, but she obeys her husband. Okay, she does what the husband says. Okay, all right. So the empress would be doing whatever the emperor says. Okay, all right. Although do keep in mind that the children would still have to obey mom too. Okay, because she's the elder. Okay, she is the adult. Okay, nothing to write. Let's take a look at this. So here up here are your superiors, ruler, husband, father, elder brother. Okay, and here are the inferiors, subject. Okay, meaning like the people. Okay, the wife, the son, or the younger brother. So all these inferiors, they always owe loyalty, respect, obedience to those above them. But then over here, though, okay, notice that these folks up here, they've got a duty as well. They got to set a good example. They got to be a good role model, provide for the inferiors right here. Okay. All right. So let's see what you know. What term is associated with the relationship between the parent and a child? We just talked about it a minute ago. Filial piety. That's right. Respect for your parents and elders. Good. Okay. What dynasty was the first to officially promote this system right here? The Han Dynasty. Okay. The Han Dynasty. Okay. Now I'll go ahead and tell you right now that these are Confucius's words up here, with one exception. There's one right there, right here. This is another person talking to Confucius, asking him a question. But so tell me this though. Where would we get these quotes from? What source? The Analects. Good. Okay. All right. So, having only coarse food to eat, that means like just plain food, coarse food, it means like not fancy. Okay. Plain water to drink and a bent arm for a pillow. One can find happiness. Riches and honor required by unrighteous ways are to me as drifting clouds. Okay. This very first quote up here, what is Confucius telling people? That's exactly right. He is saying you don't need to be materialistic to be happy. That's exactly right. Okay. And he's also saying that when you do get riches, especially when you get them like unrighteous ways, like underhanded ways, okay, then that they don't last. Okay. It's not a permanent thing. It's not something to be proud of. Okay. All right, look here. I really this one right here is revolutionary for that time period, guys. By nature, men are pretty much alike. Just that one sentence was very radical for that time because most people would have believed no, it really does matter who your daddy is. Like, what's your blood? What family are you from? Are you from that family? Or are you from that family? Okay, it mattered. But he's saying no, not really. Men are pretty much alike. But he does say there's a difference between men, though. It is learning and practice that set men apart. So, what was important to Confucius? Education. That's right. True story. Confucius did not have a lot of love for his son. Okay, he didn't hate his son, but he didn't really respect his son because his son had no interest in education. Okay, he had no interest in learning, and so Confucius actually cared more about his own students than he cared about his own son. Um, so now here, this is like a Chinese prince who's asking a question right here. Okay, is there any one word that can serve as a principle for the conduct of life? It's a good question. Can you tell me one word that should be like your guiding principle to live your life? And this is Confucius right here. Confucius replied, perhaps the word reciprocity. Do not do to others what you would not want others to do to you. Have y'all heard that before? That's right, but it has a name. Some people know the name of that. What? The golden rule. Good, very good. Do you know what culture or civilization gave us the golden rule? Not China. No, it was the Greeks. Okay, but here's the cool thing: Confucius never had any contact with the Greeks and vice versa. This is an example of what we call independent invention, like where two people come up with the same idea on their own. Okay, just a coincidence. So it's kind of a cool. It's it's kind of a most people want to be treated the way they treat others. Okay, or you should treat people that way. Okay, now look here. This last one. To govern is to set things right. It is a if a ruler himself is upright, all will go well without orders. But if he himself is not upright, even though he gives orders, they will not be obeyed. Now look right here. So if a ruler himself is upright, usually when you hear that word upright, we mean something standing up, like I'm standing up right now. Okay, that's not how he's using the word upright. Can somebody give me another synonym for the word upright in this context? If a ruler himself is upright, all will go well without orders. Not strict, perfect, moral, okay, honorable, a man of good character, okay, a good role model, okay, a righteous person, okay, a good person. That's what he said. So if a ruler himself is honorable, all will go well without orders. He's saying that a ruler who's a good role model and everybody knows that he's an honorable person, he doesn't have to tell people what to do. They're going to do it on their own because he's a good role model. They're going to know what he wants and they're going to do it. Why will they do it? If he is an honorable person, why will the people do it without being told? They respect him. That's exactly right. And then look here. If he himself is not upright, if he is a bad ruler, okay, if he's a corrupt ruler, even though he gives orders, they will not be obeyed. Why will they not obey him? They don't respect him. Good. All right. Okay. Now, uh, okay, moving on here. Uh, this right here. Why did Buddhism spread more widely than Hinduism? Do you guys remember? It's a universalizing religion, but that's kind of vague, though. Can you be more specific? What was it about Buddhism that would make somebody say, yes, sign me up, and about Hinduism, no, thank you? The caste system. That's it. Hinduism had the caste system, and so you were told right away you might have to die several times before you could achieve what you might think of as heaven. Whereas Buddhism, where they rejected the caste system and said you could achieve it in one lifetime. Okay, good. Okay. Do you remember what Indian emperor promoted Buddhism? Ashoka. Very good. Ashoka did. Okay. All right. Time to write. Christianity. Okay. We'll start this today and we'll finish it up tomorrow. Okay. So Christianity had a very strong appeal to the lower classes and women, basically people who got the short end of the stick most often. You know, men had power and the rich had power, but Christianity appealed to those without power. And here are the reasons why. Number one, Christianity said that everyone is equal before God, rich or poor. God doesn't care who your daddy is. He loves everyone equally. He doesn't care what family you came from or how much money you have. Everyone can go to heaven, not just some groups, but any group, any person. Remember in Hinduism, for example, strict Brahmins believed you had to be a male Brahmin to achieve moksha. No dietary restrictions. So keep in mind, Christianity is coming from the Jewish world. Jesus himself was a Jew. And so when Paul was promoting Judaism, okay, the people, the Gentiles listening to Paul, they understood where Paul was coming from, okay, where the teachings were coming from, the Jewish people. And they were like, we like what you're saying, but we also like our bacon. Okay. And Paul, what he cared about was spreading Christianity. He didn't care about whether or not you obeyed the right, if you ate the right things or not. Okay. And so Paul said, you can eat whatever you want. Okay. No restrictions. Okay. And then there was this little issue right here. I think we talked about that, right? We didn't talk about that. Well, if you don't know what that is, you might want to go home and ask your folks. Amongst the Jewish population, okay, there was a procedure done to young infants, okay, little snip right there, and it could be done to adult men too, okay, if they were to marry a Jewish woman and wanted to become, enter, do Judaism, they would have to have that done, and um, Paul told them wisely, don't worry about that, guys, okay, you don't have to have the snip done, okay, and they're like, oh. Thank you. Sign. We can do it then. Okay, we can sign this up. And then finally here, Christians believe that men and women are spiritually equal, meaning that God loves women just as much as He loves men. Okay, He doesn't favor one over the other. Okay, guys, we will stop there for the day. Okay, we'll pick up here tomorrow.